Hello and welcome to my new All About Stamping video series. I wanted to make this video series about something that I really love and incorporate into almost every project I do, which is stamping. And I wanted to show you the versatility of all of these stamps as well as how I pick them, what I do with them, what my process is, and which brands and companies that I love. And this first introductory video is about how to get started stamping, the tools I use every time I stamp, and the different types of stamps there are. There will be a PDF for every single video in this series, and it will always be available at my blog. You can go to the link in the subbar or in this post on my blog. So, I wanted to start out by talking about the three main types of stamps. We have woodblock, cling, and clear. And I'm using Hero Art stamps mostly for this demo just because I wanted to show you, have them be continuous over the same one. But this pretty much goes for any type of stamp, tends to fall in this category. So the first one is wood mounted, and these are usually mounted on a wood block with this rubber image with a little bit of a foam cushion. And with these, the positive about them is that they get great impressions. Rubber stamps wonderfully, takes ink, you can do all sorts of techniques with it. The only problem is you can't see through the block, so you can use something like a Stamp-O-Ma-Jig to line up the stamp a little bit better. I'll show you how to use that in this video series, but that's definitely one of the tools that I use most commonly with wood blocks. So you can see where the image is going to stamp. So that's wood. Then we have our acrylic stamps, or our photopolymer stamps. And most stamp companies nowadays make these types of stamps primarily. And it used to be that you got into stamping by starting out with woodblock stamps, but that's not so much true anymore. So these are from two of my favorite companies, Hero Arts and Lawn Fawn, and there are a lot of other companies that do photopolymer and acrylic stamps as well. And the trick with these is that they stamp, they create an image that's just like the rubber stamp one, except they're perfectly clear. So you need to put them on acrylic block, which this is just a piece of hard plastic that you can buy in all shapes and sizes, and then you pick it up with you pick up the stamp with your block, and then it just acts like a rubber stamp. And you can do all sorts of really cool techniques with this. And the positive, once again, is that you can see through it, and that you can get a lot on one sheet. So this stamp set, or this stamp, costs about half the price of this entire sheet does. So you get a lot of bang for your buck with acrylic stamps. And also, that brings me to talking about acrylic blocks, which you can literally buy these in any shape, any size, from 1 inch by 1 inch up to probably 12 inches by 12 inches. That's huge. But for starting out, I recommend having a 3 inch by 3 inch, either round or square, a 1 by 3 inch for those sentiments, a 2 by 6 inch for the longer sentiments, and then a 4 by 6 or even a little bit larger for your background stamps and your really big images. And you can pick these up from Hobby Lobby, any big box store around you, or of course you can order them online. Just and keep an eye out for sales, because pretty much every store that sells stamps will sell these blocks. Some other of my favorites are 1 inch by 1 inch block, which is great for little tiny images, and a 1 inch by 6 inch block. Yes, it is. 1 inch by 6 inch or 1 inch by 8 inch works great for longer sentiments. And these are not the only blocks that I have. I have a lot. You tend to accumulate them over time, especially the smaller ones, since they're very cheap. And you know what? As long as you have a place to store them, it's never harmful to have extra blocks. You always just have something for the stamp size. And then there's also, for the third type of stamp, there's a type called cling, which you can either get them with the picture on the back or without the picture on the back. And as you can see here, you can get this one off here. They both look exactly like this rubber part here, but the difference is that you can cling them to a clear block. So you have that ease of placement, you know where you're going to stamp, but you have the qualities of a rubber stamp, which gives a really good impression every time. So it's kind of up to you which you prefer best, and a lot of times a particular stamp image only comes in one type. So that's why I use all three kinds. You can use them with the same acrylic blocks that you have for your clear stamps. As long as you have something to cling it to, it works just great. So those are the three types of stamps. And there are other types. There are, for example, foam stamps or silicone stamps on a foam block. But these are basically the three types of stamps that you'll see everywhere. And pretty much the key is to experiment and find out how you like to stamp. So for me, a lot of times when I'm using a really big stamp, let's say I'm using this stamp from Hero Arts, this doily, I like to have an old mouse pad underneath my stamp just to make sure that the middle area has enough bounce to be completely covered. So I like to use this old mouse pad. You can pick this up at any office supply store, probably, or even an old garage sale if you don't have one around your house. And it just adds that extra bounce. I don't use it under everything I use because sometimes, like with clear acrylic stamps, there's already enough give in the stamp that you don't need something like this. So that's another one of my tools. And then we also have materials for masking or stamping. So I have a piece of scratch paper. This is just an old printed off email that I didn't need anymore. And printer paper is wonderful for both stamping on and then cutting it out and using it as a mask. And it's also really good for just having a piece of paper behind what you're working on so that when you get ink over the edges, it doesn't go into your work surface. Also, I use Post-it notes for a lot of different techniques, and you'll see those probably throughout the video series. You can also use masking paper too for masking, obviously. And masking tape actually works really well too, but I love to have Post-it notes on hand because they're really handy. Also, to clean my stamps, a lot of people use baby wipes. Some people don't even clean their stamps at all. But I use just an old t-shirt. This is just cut from an old t-shirt, and as you can see, there's a lot of ink on here. It's all different colors, and a spritzer bottle. So when I get done stamping, I just spray it with water, wipe it off with my rag, and I'm good to go. And if you are really wanting your stamps to be perfectly clean every time, you can even use a little bit of really mild soap and wash them off under running water. But honestly, I like having that extra little stickiness of old ink on there because it helps pick up the ink better next time. So water and a rag work perfectly fine for me. You also need ink to stamp. I have my two favorites here, which is Jenny Bolin Spice Tin ink. It's a dye ink, and Memento Tuxedo Black ink. These are both dye inks and they work really well for stamping. My next video will go over types of ink and why you would choose one over the other. But for now, just know that you need ink to stamp. You could also stamp with water, and there are various other techniques, but starting out, you want ink. Also, we have Versamark, and this is really good for embossing. For embossing, you need the Versamark, some embossing powder, which usually comes in containers like this. This is Zing by American Crafts. And then you need an embossing gun. And you can buy these, once again, at any big box store or any online store that sells stamps, usually sells these types of products. And you need these three together because the Versamark, or just regular embossing ink, works to hold the powder on while you heat it, and this gun has really concentrated heat. So a regular hairdryer will just blow the powder all over, but this will, with the aid of the ink, heat it while it still stays in place. So that is my beginning little talk about all the stuff you need to start out with. And you can buy one stamp and one ink pad and start out, and that's the perfect way to start out because as you grow and experiment, you'll learn which you like, what kind of images you like, what kind you like to use, and over time you'll learn what you really love and what you enjoy doing with stamping. So check out the PDF on my blog. It will have a list of all of these things that I love and use for stamping. And then the next video we'll talk about coloring with your stamped images and different types of inks. So thank you very much for tuning into this tutorial video. I hope you're excited for this video series. I know I am. And I will catch you again next time.